What exactly are directives? Let's imagine we want to, let's clear these things up. Let's imagine we just want to change the value of Andreas. Then we need an HTML element, it's just called input, right? So let's do it. We just have an input element and we stick something like this here, and we have Andreas, and then we have a name of it. Yeah, we have the first name, and then let's see. There's a box with Andreas in it. But when we change it, nothing happens. So we have here a native HTML element called input. Maybe we just give it a type text. So now we have a complete element called input, and we have a value Andreas, and we have the name first name. So we see here all the information. Now we can make these attributes dynamically. So if we pass vbind, then we make it dynamic. And our IDE is doing something strange. Here it's an orange first name string, and here it's blue. Why is it blue? Because we're making this attribute here dynamic. And then Vue JS is automatically looking for a variable called Andreas. So let's hit save, and then we see property Andreas was accessed, but it's not defined on the instance. So the error message here is saying that it's looking for a variable called Andreas. If we rename it and call it, for example, last name, and we just erase this here, and hit save and jump into our browser, then we see the value of our variable last name is printed in the browser. So what's happening here? We see an input element, and we have the attribute value. And the attribute value is now dynamic when we bind the value or the expression printed here. So v minus is called directive because every directive is called v minus, and it's followed by the name of the directive. Here the directive name is bind. V minus bind means that we are binding anything on this element. And now it's really important to know the difference of source code of the DOM and the element. So here is a real element, and we are binding this attribute, and we are binding this value on this element. So this is vbind value. But there's another thing. We also can react on events. For example, we can do von and HTML events. Let's just have a Google search, HTML events of an input element. Then we see there are really much. Oh, where do we have it? We have it, for example, events, change, for example, it's an event. We also have, that's maybe not the best here, input element, that's maybe not the best documentation for that. Oh, here we have it, the different types of the input element, and there must be the events as well. HTML events, let's have another Google, DOM events. We have it here, blur, for example, we have drag, we have copy, we have drop, focus, input, change, and everything else. And what's, for example, here, the input element. The event occurs when an element gets a user input, and it's used in the input events. Okay, let's head over and let's do it. So let's use let's react on the input element. And let's do something. We now need a method to call. So input callback, for example. That's a good name for this event listener here. And now we need another declaration here in our object. We need methods. So let's do methods and call the first method input callback. And this input callback method, let's do a console log. Hi there. So now hit this input box and enter hello. Then we see that I have a typo here. Once again, methods. So now let's hit hello, and then we see 5 times hey there. Okay, so this method input callback is triggered on the input event. So what should you now remember? V-. Every directive starts with V-. That's kind of a namespace of the directives. This is the name of the directive. So we have here vbind and we have here von. This is the attribute which makes, for example, vbind here a dynamic attribute value, and here we have react on the input event. So let's do a third one. Let's do input, and now let's do vmodel, and the vmodel first name. It's pretty hard to talk and to type at the same time. And vmodel, let's now change the value of Andreas, and have a look here. Now you see vmodel reacts the same like von input when I'm doing a typo. And here the first one we see binding the value. And vmodel is a short form for vbind value, von input. And what vmodel does is when there's an input event, then change the value. And when the value has been changed, dynamically bind the value as a value attribute on this input element. So this is what vmodel is doing. We have vbind and von, and those are connected in vmodel. So what we see now is that there is a two-way data binding. So we have the properties and we have reacting on events. And when we are doing this and we are changing the value here, you see that it's changed here as well, because we have here our string interpolation with 2 curly braces, first name, and we have here vbind value. So here's the value and there's the value. And the value, when it's changed everywhere. It's changed here and there as well. When we are changing values, the whole component has to be updated. So we can say re-rendered, okay? Let's stick to the term re-render and now place again the math random. And then you see something strange, because when I'm changing the value here, the page is changed here and here. So you see it. Math random here stays the same, but here it's re-rendered. Why is that? As I have told you, Vue JS has a look. Where is the value I have to change? It's first name here, it's there, but random value shouldn't be touched because there's nothing in our computed that has been changed. But here is a method, and the method in the front end is called every time the component is re-rendering. That's the simple thing you should be aware of. And when you know that, then you should just avoid those methods because of performance reasons. And there's another thing I want to demonstrate you. Because when I connect the 2 strings, when I connect the math random and the first name, then you see what I've told you, then this random has changed as well. When I do this here, then Vue JS automatically knows, oh, there's a value in our computed, it's first name, and the first name value is changing, so let's recalculate math random. And let's do something that you trust me, that you believe me. Let's do the last name thing here. And then here the computed stays the same because the value here is untouched. So you see, anytime the component or the value in the component updates, then the unupdated is triggered. And you see the values here are updated as well. And when you do methods here in your front end, then the update takes place at any time. In the next video, we are doing a little bit more about those events. I told you that is called updated when there's a re-render. And we are getting into the Vue.js lifecycle methods. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe and leave a comment below. We see us in the next video.